Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Now normally we would be doing this at the end of the 10th Doctor's final episode, however that ran so long. It's probably one of the longest videos we've ever done.
Yeah.
And so we had to separate this into its own video. Today we are talking about every episode of the 10th Doctor. Do you have some initial thoughts before we jump into them?
I really enjoyed it. There weren't a lot of real stinkers. You know, there were some that were just, so-so.
Well, yeah.
But overall, I like Tennant quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll probably talk more about it at the end of the video as well. So, yeah, we might as well just jump right on in. I've got all the thumbnails this time around. We can start with the Christmas invasion.
What was I laughing at?
I don't know. Again, has been a common theme for the past 10 Doctors that we've done this for, is it is always incredibly difficult to find anything of you specifically. Like, I will always do something weird in the video at some point to put in the thumbnail, but you, I don't know, for some reason it's harder. I don't know why.
Wasn't this the one with the spinning Christmas tree?
Yes.
All right.
So this was the first David Tennant episode where the Doctor is passed out for most of the episode, and Rose and Mickey and Jackie are all dealing with the Sycorax invasion, and we see Harriet Jones, Prime Minister, dealing with it. And it's interesting. It's all right for an introduction episode. I mean,
yeah.
It's a little bit of an issue because he's just not a part of it very much, but overall, I mean, it's good. And for a Christmas episode, too. For the first Christmas episode since the Daleks Master Plan Part 7, I think. I think it was good. So,
isn't that the one where Hartnell literally turned to the camera and said, "And all of you out there, Merry Christmas"?
Oh, yeah.
Whew. That was very strange.
I mean, I think it's a thing because at least, for that episode, it's like, well, this is airing on Christmas Day. Do we want to put in the actual next episode of this story? Or do we want to just play something that it's okay if people miss it because they're eating or they're in a food coma already or they're opening their presents and stuff? So let's just have a nothing episode.
But isn't this the one that literally sets up the entire end of Tennant's tenure? Doesn't he lose his hand in this one?
Yeah, well, and in this one it still kind of is a little bit fluffy, but you're right. This one does set up a number of things, and he does lose his hand at the end, but because he had just regenerated, he still has enough to grow a new one, and that hand is lost for some time. Only some time. So.
And then Harriet Jones blows up the retreating Sycorax ship.
Yes, she orders Torchwood to do that. That also sets up Torchwood for the coming season.
And he said, they had agreed to the demands and everything, and she said, yes, you saved us this time, but you won't always be here, and I cannot afford to have something like this happen when you're not here. And so he ruins her reputation by whispering something to one of the aides there.
Yeah. Doesn't she look tired? Or don't you think she looks tired, specifically? So yeah, it's an interesting... It is still a very good episode.
Yeah.
Despite having the little Christmas fluffiness, let's say. Next up was New Earth, where the Doctor and Rose went to New Earth after the destruction of the Earth in the 9th Doctor episode. They went to the New Earth where there's a hospital. They met up with the Face of Bo, and there's all the cat people, and there's Cassandra, and all sorts of stuff going on.
And what was her name? Novice
Hain, I think.
Yeah. All right. But also, this is the one where they literally combine every virus that they can find.
Yeah. It was, they were testing, they had cells of different people, and they were putting every disease into them. And so the Doctor, put all cleaning products, all cures, all everything into the sanitizer in the elevator in order to cure them of all their stuff. So an okay first episode.
Yeah.
So
there I am pointing.
Yeah. Got you. Got one on that one. Next up was Tooth and Claw. So this episode, they go back in time to Scotland, and they meet Queen Victoria.
Rose does a very bad Scottish accent.
Yes, and they end up facing a werewolf.
Werewolf. The Airwolf. That must have been what I was... No, that was the last one.
Yeah, so...
Pointing it.
Yeah, this one, I mean... all things considered, it's probably one of the weakest thumbnails I ever made, because it's just the two of us smiling. I didn't catch anything from this episode, so I have shamed myself as a thumbnail artist. So,
but the actress playing Queen Victoria was very good.
Yeah,
the story was interesting. The change into the werewolf, for television, it was pretty good.
Yeah,
and of course, then at the end, the estate there in Scotland was named Torchwood, so she decides to establish the Torchwood Institute to basically fight off the demonic doctor in the future.
Yeah, because she didn't like the werewolf, didn't like the doctor, didn't like anything from outer space, so she sets up Torchwood. Next up was School Reunion, the return of Sarah Jane for the first time in the modern series.
And the guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah,
as the monster villain.
Yeah, they were kind of vampire-ish, but they were trying to set up, what was it, like the God Code or something like that. Like, they were using the minds of children and their imagination in order to crack the God Code. And so the Doctor, Rose, Mickey, and then Sarah Jane and K9 were on the case. And it is a bit of a shame that I haven't gotten around to showing you the Sarah Jane adventures yet, but we're gonna get there, and it's all gonna be worth it in the end. So it just takes time. We're still going through Torchwood,
and they didn't they pretty much destroy the school?
Yeah, I think they did at the end.
And as a former teacher, I appreciated that.
Yeah. So next up was The Girl in the Fireplace.
Now, this is one that we had seen in our tour.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed it. One of the things that it did is that the Doctor, for quite a while, had been able to control where the TARDIS went. And although they went onto this spaceship, and he went to see this young girl, because she was being frightened by monsters, he came out of the fireplace and said, "Don't worry, I'll be right back." But when he came back, it was like 10, 12 years later.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, "Don't worry, I'll come right back." And he never did. He came back. It took much longer. And there were clockwork people.
Yeah. Honestly, because when we first watched this, I chose this specifically to watch because we were doing, I don't know what episode, but we were rewatching some classic episode, and I was like, well, we normally do a modern episode with it, so I was like, okay, I'm going to pick my favorite episode of them all, and this still holds up as my favorite episode, and it's very quintessentially Doctor Who, and probably would have been a much better introduction to the 10th Doctor than The Waters of Mars was, but that's beside the point. But to me, it's quintessential Doctor Who of, you have the history and you have the historical figure and how they interact with the Doctor, but you also have the space. You have the scary monsters, the robots, and going around the sci-fi ship and everything. And honestly, I just think the story of Renette and her imaginary doctor friend, I really enjoy that. So,
and one of the creepier aspects, if I remember, is the spaceship was having trouble and they needed parts, but no parts were available, so they started cannibalizing the crew and had living parts built into the spaceship.
Yeah, which is why they were going after her in the first place, was because by their logic, they needed her brain specifically to power the ship, because the ship was the SS Madame de Pompadour specifically. So, I mean, it was all just like this sort of computer logic of like, well, I guess it needs to be that. It's like they're not necessarily evil. They're just carrying out their programming. Yeah. So, but still, to me, probably the best episode of Doctor Who. So, After that was Rise of the Cybermen, and if I had thought of this ahead of time, I would have also gone over to The Age of Steel as well. This was our first two-parter with the 10th Doctor.
Now, this is where they go to the alternate universe.
Yes.
Where the Cybermen were not aliens from another planet, but actually had been constructed by the guy in the previous thumbnail.
Yeah, Loomis, I believe is his name.
Yeah.
So...
and it was interesting because, again, it introduced Pete, who had died in the 9th Doctor's episode, Father's Day. But here he was still alive because it was an alternate universe.
Yeah.
But he was very wealthy. And he and Jackie were kind of on the outs, weren't they?
A little bit.
Yeah. But Rose, of course, enjoyed seeing her father, but couldn't... I mean, it was all very weird to her because she had learned that her father really hadn't done much in her real world, in her life.
Yeah.
But she had gotten to know him, and the fact that he literally had sacrificed himself to get rid of the Death Eaters or whatever they were.
Yeah.
The giant ripoffs from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
The Tormentors?
I
don't know.
They might have been Death Eaters. I don't know. Or Dementors or something?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We're not big Harry Potter fans, and nowadays we probably never will be, but that's beside the point. But yeah, it is an interesting two-parter and a good work-in of the Cybermen, definitely. So, and then at the end, Mickey decided to stay behind in the alternate universe. So, yeah, it was an interesting enough two-parter.
Yeah.
So, after that was The Idiot's Lantern.
Very unusual. This was right around the advent of television. I can't remember if it was the 50s.
Yeah, because it was because they were watching the Queen's coronation on TV.
So early 50s. And basically this entity had taken over the broadcast towers and was trying to essentially control people from Earth.
Well, she was like feeding off of life energy and like leaving people faceless and stuff. And it's all right. And then there's the family there that the Doctor and Rose encounter with the, high-strung, war vet father who, slapping his kid around and stuff like that. And it's all right.
Yeah. Other than the fact that, it kind of buried the lead in that television really does make people mindless.
Yeah.
Because there are people who say TV is my life.
Well, it is. I'm making money off of it now.
But this isn't really television. This is internet.
I don't watch live television.
He really doesn't
at all anymore.
When he was younger, he was obsessed with watching TV.
Oh yeah. So nowadays it's just TikTok. So TikTok.
Right. So again, C-, D.
Oh, yeah. Next up was The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit.
This, I thought, had an interesting premise that they didn't really do very well with it. Literally, they literally had captured the devil and put him inside of a planet orbiting a dying star. It was very convoluted.
Yeah.
And again, I think we discussed the possibility of what if they really had, a confrontation with Lucifer, with the fallen angel. Because this was all wrapped up in all sorts of other gobbledygook that really didn't...
It's a strange thing because, they basically, they don't say he's the devil, it's many devils. This is the creature from beyond time that inspired all the myths, basically.
Yeah.
And specifically, his mind was trying to escape because his body was still trapped within the planet, going towards a black hole, basically. So it was interesting, and this was also the introduction of the Ood into Doctor Who, and them being possessed by the devil is entirely creepy. So overall, it's a good two-parter. It's just a little odd. So. Yeah. Next up was Love and Monsters.
Okay. I know people hate this one. And it was weird. Yes, the Absorbaloff.
It's so weird.
Well, the thing is, I think it could have been creepier if they hadn't really made the guy not look like Jabba the Hutt, but Pizza the Hutt from Spaceballs.
Well, I mean, but that was the thing, was that the Absorbaloff was from like a contest, and like kids would send in, monsters, and one of them won, being the Absorbaloff. The Absorbaloff won to be on Doctor Who, so this is what the kid had in mind, but it's, they don't really go with the creep factor of the Absorbaloff, but at the same time, the whole rest of the episode following Elton and Linda, the band of doctor finding, fanboys and girls, basically, it's strange.
Yeah.
But watching it again, it's okay. It's funny. It's goofy. I wouldn't necessarily say it's good, but I enjoyed it more this time around.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like when we watched episode 2 of Torchwood, and, with the gas, the alien gas that possessed people to have orgasms because that's what it fed on. And watching that, I was just like, honestly, this is way funnier than I remember it being. So yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's not the worst. It's certainly not the worst episode of Doctor Who. So, but a lot of people would say that Fear Her is the worst episode of Doctor Who.
And again, it's not great. I didn't think it was as bad as it was predicted to be. The girl is possessed by some alien being that is trying to get back to its swarm.
Yeah.
And it takes place during the Olympics.
The 2012 Olympics.
This was done in 2008 or 9.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, and again, I thought they missed a great thing there, that when the Olympics were held, they should have had David Tennant run at least one leg of the torch through London, because that would have been very funny.
Well, yeah, so...
and she draws things that...
She can capture people and objects within her drawings.
Yeah.
So towards the end of it, she does capture the Doctor and the TARDIS, and Rose is left all on her own, until eventually Rose finds the spaceship that the creature was using, which was in the pothole that this council guy was trying to cover up the entire time, and she chucked it into the torch, the Olympic torch, as the runner was running by, and then it got warm enough so that the ship would work, and then the alien could take off. Overall, it's just kind of dull. The Doctor and Rose are in the most exotic location ever, a neighborhood in London in 2012, so...
Yeah.
After that, we ended off Season 2 with Army of Ghosts and Doomsday.
All right, takes place at the new Torchwood Institute.
Yes.
And there's a breakthrough from another dimension.
Yeah, they learned that there's something sort of poking through the void, and so they helped expand it to see what this thing is, and it turns out to be the Cybermen.
And the Daleks.
Yeah. The Cybermen start coming through as the ghosts, and then the Daleks come through their void ship. They basically, it's like the Daleks came through the void, and the Cybermen were able to follow through to this world.
Now, the Torchwood Institute gets destroyed. One of the characters, though, was played by the actress who would later become Martha.
Yes.
And they explain that by saying Martha was her cousin.
Yeah, basically. So, and we also have the return of Mickey. Jackie gets involved. Pete gets involved, and at the end, all of them and Rose get trapped in the parallel universe, leaving the Doctor all by himself. So, which it is an interesting thing, because I remember the first time I watched this, I kind of thought it's almost weird that they get put in the parallel universe and the Doctor stays here, because I thought, well, I mean, obviously you have to have the show continue, but I did think, I was like, well, it's weird because normally I feel like the alien would go somewhere else because this is their world technically. But I don't know. It was just an interesting thing because obviously, at this point I had only watched these 2 seasons, but I thought, oh, that's a weird thing. But obviously, you have to have the Doctor in this universe to keep the story going. Yeah. So,
and theoretically, this was supposed to be the last time we see Rose, but that would not be the case.
Yeah, we're going to be saying that at the end of season 4, and at the end of the specials as well. So it's not the last time you'll say, theoretically, this should be the last time we see Billie Piper. So coming after that was The Runaway Bride, our introduction to Donna Noble.
Now, I thought all of the stuff with Donna was hysterical. For the first time in a long time, probably since the first Romana, or Ace, there was a new companion. At least I thought it was going to be a new companion at this point.
Yeah.
Which turns out she wasn't. But she was not secondary to the Doctor. She slapped him around, talked back to him, told him he was an idiot, did all these sorts of things. And then it turns out there's this giant spider queen in the sewers under London, and she's trying to incubate all her babies, and again, this is all we didn't know at the time, but a big setup leading to literally the end of the Tennant era.
Yeah,
in Turn Left. So, and then at the end, she decides not to go with him, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah,
and she goes off, and he takes off and finds somebody new.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, with all the specials after the Christmas invasion, they kind of have this mentality of, we're going to have a celebrity cameo with each one. Like, a celebrity companion that goes with the Doctor. And technically, Catherine Tate was supposed to be that first celebrity cameo, basically. But then season 4 rolls around and they're like, we need someone. They start coming up with ideas. But then they just have this idea, why don't we bring back Catherine Tate just as a full companion? So yeah, it's good, definitely. I'd say better than the Christmas invasion, and a very interesting introduction. Donna's kind of like if you combined Tegan and Ace, and just with all the good stuff, not all the problems that Tegan had.
Yeah.
So, but after that we had Smith and Jones, the introduction of Martha.
All right, so the Judoon, these rhinoceros galactic police force, literally take a hospital that Martha's in out of London and put it up on the moon, a platoon of Judoon on the moon. I mean, seriously, how long did they have to think about that?
Oh, yeah.
And they were looking for a hemivore?
Something like that.
Someone that was after the blood.
Another vampire, basically.
Yeah. Who was also a shapeshifter?
Kind of. They never really showed that off, but the thing was that she could also assimilate blood. So when she would drink human blood, then she would be able to pass the scans that the Judoon were doing.
Yeah.
So she would pass off as human. So
ultimately, though, they defeat the hemivore, the Judoon leave, and Martha goes back down to Earth with the rest of the hospital. We find out she's got a family just as bad as any other family with Jackie and Rose. But then Martha decides to go along with the Doctor.
Yeah.
At the end of this one.
Now that you mention it, well, I was going to say Donna probably has the most stable family, but I mean...
Her mother doesn't. I mean, her mother's a nag.
Yeah.
Now, Wilf was a great addition.
Yeah. But even then, Rose and Jackie were stable enough. It was just, when it was just the two of them, but... I don't know. But, yeah. Martha's family, some trouble there. After that, we had the Shakespeare Code.
I really enjoyed this one, obviously, because of my Shakespeare background. Again, done about, at least half a dozen of his plays as an actor and a director. So they go back into the late 1500s, and he's writing a play that no one's ever heard of before. And it turns out he's being essentially not controlled, but prodded by these three aliens who who basically are witches,
Yeah.
and they're trying to get him to write a spell into his play that will allow them to, I don't know, take over the earth or go back home, whatever. This is aliens always want to do.
Well, yeah.
But they keep using lines that Shakespeare would use in his later plays, and the doctor has to keep telling Martha, no, he hasn't written that one yet. No, don't say that. Because Shakespeare says, oh, that's a good line, I should use that. No, don't tell him anymore. So anyway, but truly enjoyed it, and it ended up with a very weird performance at the Globe Theater.
Yeah, so it was the tragic reason why there is no, was it Love's Labour's won, after Love Labour's lost. There we go. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've read almost any Shakespeare. Wait, did he do Macbeth?
Yes.
Okay, I've read some Shakespeare. So, we're not in the theater, we can say that, by the way. So,
I've been in it. I think I probably said that.
Yeah. So I did read that. I guess I read Romeo and Juliet, like, freshman year of high school, but...
Yeah, I hate Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, so...
But, again, most of the tragedies... Now, the Scottish play is one of my favorites. That's a role that passed me by, unfortunately. The one production I did, I played Duncan, the King of Scotland, who gets murdered by, the lead character.
Yeah.
Midsummer Night's Dream is one of the funniest plays ever written. And I've done that 4 times. I've done Comedy of Errors. I've done Richard II, Richard III. I've done Taming of the Shrew. Good Lord, how many others? I don't know. Anyway, I've done Twelfth Night twice. Once as Sir Toby and once as Malvolio. So, just having all of that in there and my background in Shakespeare, this is one of my top favorites.
Yeah, so... Next up was Gridlock.
Very weird. This is back to New Earth again.
Yep.
And everybody lives underground, and they're all caught in literally a massive 2-3 decade long traffic jam.
Yeah.
And they're literally being controlled by a system that plays them religious hymns and gives them updates as to how long it's going to take to get to their exit. Also reintroduces the face of Bo, which again, as we will find out, although he was introduced in the Ninth Doctor, he's also part of the whole end of the David Tennant era. So it's to me fascinating how this is Russell T Davies. Davis.
Yes.
All right. That RTD basically had this idea, and I read somewhere, it may have been just last week, because we had finished it up, that he said he knew at some point he was going to have to write the end of David Tennant's tenure. So he just started accumulating all these ideas that he said sooner or later I'll just put them all together before we move on to the next Doctor. And the face of Bo turns out to be one of those.
Yeah, so... but yeah...
Because isn't this where the face of Bo tells him you are not alone?
Yes.
All right.
Because he says in New Earth that his final message as he dies, his dying words will be given to the lonely god, which they all interpret to be the Doctor, but he says, we're not there yet. Then, at the end of this episode, he dies saying, you are not alone, and that's that. And we have the scene at the end where, the Doctor has not been telling Martha anything, and so she just sits and demands that he talks to her, basically, and so he explains why he's the last of the Time Lords. So, an interesting episode, if a strange premise. Also, you completely breezed over it, and I don't blame you for it, is the reintroduction of the macra that are just there. Just crabs.
Forgotten about them.
Everybody does, so...
Now, seeing this close up here, and I realize he's 10,000 years, 10 billion years, 10 million years old. After finally finding out who he really is, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't model his face after John Barrowman.
Well, I guess that just brings up the question of, did they... Because, the face of Bo is shown off in the Ninth Doctor's second episode. So, I guess it just depends on, did they have that planned out that far in advance, or just... Because I honestly don't know if him being Jack was even really the idea. Was, it's just like they have the face of Bo, they have all these ideas. The You Are Not Alone, and it's only at the end of season 3 that they just have what's almost a throwaway line of the face of Bo they used to call me, and then that's it. And it's just like, well, I guess it leaves it open to interpretation. Is the face of Bo actually Jack or not? So I don't know.
Well, what's odd is that all those times that people tried to kill him, he says, I can't die, and yet he dies in this simply of old age.
Well, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know about the face of Bo, so... Next up, we had Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks.
All right, so the Daleks land in early 1930s New York City. They are literally helping to construct the Empire State Building because it will channel some kind of energy that they need, because they finally figured out after millions of years that they cannot seem to defeat the humans and the Doctor because they lack what the humans have, their biggest asset, which is emotions. That they can sometimes defy logic and simply go with instinct. And so they create this experiment where they're going to try to create Dalek human hybrids. And it spectacularly backfires on them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because Dalek Sec has this grand plan, and to move away from the dogma and the ideologies of the Daleks, and the other three end up betraying him because they're still, even though they're a part of the cult of Skaro, which is supposed to be this, sort of free-thinking Dalek cult,
hippie Daleks.
Yeah. But even they can't fully abandon their Dalek heritage, basically. So it's interesting, and it's an interesting setting. Quite honestly, it almost has nothing to do with being in Manhattan other than making the Empire State Building. It's like it feels like they were just sort of two things that were slapped together. Yeah. But overall, it was an interesting two-parter. Yeah. So,
and one of the secondary roles was probably, I don't know at the time, relatively unknown Andrew Garfield.
Yep. So, next up was the Lazarus Experiment.
All right, and the look on my face says, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Scientist tries to figure out a way to essentially get eternal youth, but it backfires because the genetic material...
The way they put it, it accidentally unlocks a, millions upon millions of years dormant gene within the human DNA that basically puts him on a different evolutionary path that turns Lazarus into a giant Scorpion King, Dwayne Johnson looking dude.
And I think I had speculated, again, to me, that it would have been better if it had simply stayed along the human being evolutionary timeline. And I realized that humans had to have come ultimately from, the amoebas and then the fish and whatever, the amphibians, into the mammals. But it would have made more sense to me if he had turned into, a King Kong type, ferocious gorilla or some other kind of weird prehistoric humanoid primate type rather than a scorpion, because that just, and besides, the CGI was really atrocious in this one.
Well, yeah.
The Spider Queen looked a lot better than this.
Yeah, well, that was way more practically done. Pretty much especially all the close-ups were done. They put all that makeup and prosthetic on her, and they only did a couple of those wide shots, so... Whereas here, yeah, Lazarus was just completely CG, and boy, it just didn't work, so... but this wasn't the first time we started hearing the name Harold Saxon, but it was the beginning where we started to take note of what's... Because there was, a guy there talking to Martha's mom about, the doctor is dangerous, this information comes from Harold Saxon himself, and it's just like, okay, what's going on with that? So... After that was 42.
And this one was about the dying star?
Yeah, so they end up on this ship that is...
harvesting part of the star.
they're drifting into this star, and they learn at the end that the star is sentient and is attacking them because they scooped up part of its composition basically to throw into their engines. So,
and the 42 refers to literally the 42 minutes in this episode that they have until the spaceship explodes or is sucked back into the star or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, interesting concept. I thought they did pretty well with it.
Yeah, it's all right. So, this was also, they were talking about they had to go through like all the doors, and there were like a bunch of trivia questions that they had to answer, and one of them was about the Beatles. And this is where I first shared my my theory that Sabrina Carpenter is not real. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to that episode and you'll understand my tinfoil hat conspiracy that Sabrina Carpenter is an AI creation used to gaslight us into thinking that they have a real singer. So
she's on the new Taylor Swift album, by the way. She does a contribution. What do they call it? Anyway, she does a duet sort of thing, or she somehow is featured on one of Taylor Swift's songs.
Yeah, I don't actually believe that she's not real. It's just that she just came out of nowhere, and then but that was the whole thing. Was that the first time I saw anything about her, it was like, oh well, her sales are equal to that of the Beatles back in the 60s, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I've never heard of her, and everyone knew who the Beatles were. Yeah. So
these overnight successes are rarely overnight. They did a piece on her on one of the TV news shows, the network news shows, that basically said she had been working almost 10 years before she made it big.
Oh, yeah. So.
And even the Beatles. I mean, people talk about, well, the Beatles came out of nowhere in 1962. It's like, yeah, they had already been working together for 5 years. You know, working the clubs not only in Liverpool, but also in Hamburg, Germany, and doing all this other stuff. Ultimately ended up changing their name from the Quarrymen to the Beatles just before they made it big.
Well, yeah.
So, yeah, no, there's no such thing really as an overnight success.
Yeah. But we'll talk more about the Beatles in a later episode. So, next up was Human Nature and the Family of Blood.
All right. So, it starts off with the doctor essentially telling Martha, are you sure they didn't see your face? Or something like that.
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand, but he says, just trust me. And he literally takes his essence as a Time Lord and puts it into a watch fob or something, either the watch or the fob, can't remember. And he literally becomes human. And they land in pre-World War I England. He becomes a teacher at a boys' school, and Martha is a maid.
Oh, yeah.
And he falls in love with the other teachers, and she falls in love with him, which again ties into one of the last parts of the last episode of Tennant's Time.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to say it's overt racism, but it really kind of is. There's bullying, there's racism, and the Family of Blood, these are people who are literally tracking down the Time Lord because they think if they drink his blood, they'll be able to live forever.
Yeah.
And again, somebody said, I think, one of the coldest lines in any of Doctor Who is where that when the Doctor punishes them and basically imprisons them, he says something like, we said we wanted to live forever, and he...
So the Doctor made sure that we did.
The Doctor made sure that we did, yeah.
Yeah. Because at the end, he wrapped the father in unbreakable chains that were forged in the heart of a dwarf star. He threw the mother into the event horizon of a collapsing galaxy. He trapped the daughter in every mirror in all of creation, and imprisoned the son in... he suspended him in time and hung him up as a scarecrow over the fields of London, or the fields of England. So, it's interesting. It is a very cold ending, but it does sort of... It is sort of a first step of the darkness that is within the Doctor, especially with this incarnation, and we first see that. Well, I mean, we see it a few other times, but one of the bigger points where that's highlighted is the Runaway Bride, where he's just sort of standing there watching over the drowning spiders and everything until Donna snaps him out of it. So, But yeah, a very interesting one. A lot of people contend one of the best episodes of Doctor Who.
And it showed the boys practicing, small arms fire and things like that. And we had a big discussion about that. I mean, in the early 1900s, it was well known that at some point very soon there was going to be literally a continental war. Germany was acting. I don't think anybody thought it would start where it did, but everybody knew that because of the nationalistic pride of the pre-war Germans, that there was going to be some kind of conflict. And so when the spark went off in Sarajevo with the assassination of the Archduke, the Austrians said they were going to take over the Serbian people in their country. The Serbians decided to ask the Russians to come in on their side. The Austrians said we could fight the Serbians but not the Russians, so they asked the Germans. That in itself would have been a regional war, but then for no reason whatsoever other than this nationalistic pride, the Germans decided they were going to try to take back the 2 provinces they lost in the war with France 100 years earlier. And when Germany attacked France, the French contacted the British. The British said, hey, we're already thinking about this. So it develops into the global conflict because literally every country involved had colonies somewhere in the world. So that's why it was called the Great War, the First World War, the war to end all wars. And then that proved to be wrong. Sorry, history teacher coming out.
After that was Blink.
All right. This is literally one of the creepiest episodes ever.
It's a much better doctorless episode than Love and Monsters was, so.
It turns out 2 girls are looking at an old haunted house. One of them disappears, and the other one ends up getting a letter from her saying that she had gone back in time, and it turns out that the weeping angels have the ability to send somebody back in time so they can steal their life force. And so the doctor and I can't remember who the girl was.
Sally Sparrow. But even the doctor and Martha were sent back to 1969, and so they've been working to try and get these messages to Sally, basically to get this specific DVD to the TARDIS so that the TARDIS will accept its commands and go back and find the Doctor, basically. And there's this whole thing of having the conversation with the Doctor on the DVD, and it's like, well, you're not really talking to him. He's reading off of a transcript of everything, and then they realize they're writing the transcript in real time. So but it's the introduction of the Weeping Angels, the most iconic of the new Doctor Who monsters. There's pretty much nothing else from the modern era that's a brand new monster has really become as iconic as the Weeping Angels, and they're up there with the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, all of it. So yeah, just a very, very good episode.
And I don't know if I mentioned this before, I'm always curious as to why this episode isn't called Don't Blink, because if you blink, if you take your eyes off of them, that's when they move.
Yeah, so. After that was Utopia, the first in our sort of 3-part finale.
All right, so they go literally to the end of time.
Yeah.
And they meet up with Professor Yana, the wonderful Derek Jacobi, however you want it.
Yeah.
There's the introduction of the drum beat. I can't remember a whole lot else about it.
Well, so the thing was that, first off, the Doctor and Martha land in Cardiff to sort of refuel the TARDIS a bit on the Rift energy. And as we saw at the end of Torchwood Season 1, Jack is, aware he's got the Doctor's hand. And so he runs to go find him again. And because Jack latched himself onto the TARDIS tried to get away from him as fast as it could and dragged them to the end of the universe. So, but they meet up with this civilization, pretty much one of the last civilizations in the universe, because everything else is dead. Every star, every galaxy, everything is dead at the end of the universe. but there's just this one little, civilization left trying to find utopia, just a place where they can live out the rest of their days. And so the Doctor and everyone, they help, and just as the rocket is lifting off, Professor Yana opens his own fob watch and regains his memories and is revealed to be the Master.
You are not alone, Yana.
Yeah, so...
That was a great reveal.
It is. And it's just so amazing, because it's in that moment where I was just like, he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure out that it's the Master. Why wouldn't it be the Master? How many times have we watched in classic Doctor Who that it was the Master? He's going to know. But even still, it's such a great... And especially, too, because I think, as he was doing that, I am. You were just like, oh, of course. It's just like, of course, he has to be the Master. And then at the end, he's shot by Chanto, and he regenerates into the Harold Saxon Master, which leads us right into the Sound of Drums.
All right, so at the end of the universe, all of the people who survived are made into these trochlophane globes, spheres, whatever they are.
It's an unfortunate tragedy of the end of the human race that they become the trochlophane. So,
and then the Master can only go between the end of the universe and modern times, I guess.
Yeah.
And so he manages to go back. He gets himself elected prime minister. Kills the president of the United States. That literally was trying to, as he always does, destroy or control the world, and then is shot and killed by his own wife.
Yes, that leads us into Last of the Time Lords, where we see the year of hell, basically, where Martha has to go around the world. She's spreading the word of the Doctor so that at the end they can use the Archangel network that the Master had created in order to restore the Doctor's youth, basically, and restore his power to face the Master. And yeah, at the end, Mrs. Jones was going to shoot the Master, but they stopped her. But it was his own wife and companion that ended up killing him, and he could have regenerated, but he decided not to, specifically to spite the Doctor. So, an interesting, a very interesting season finale.
Callbacks to Lazarus.
Yes, because he used the Lazarus technology in reverse to rapidly age the Doctor by 900 years. It ended up turning him into a little golem creature and stuff. So, essentially, 1,000 years without regenerating, what does that do to the Doctor's body? So yeah, but it was our first story with John Sim as the Master. He's interesting. It's certainly a unique portrayal of the Master.
Yeah. I think we said at the time, I thought he was way over the top in this, but as we see when he comes back, his later portrayal was much more in line with what we thought of as the Master.
A lot of people do prefer his performance in The End of Time to this two-parter, which is interesting because, if anything, his version of the Master should technically be more unhinged in The End of Time, because he's literally falling apart, but even still, it works out a little bit more. So, but yeah, I should just go ahead and say we're taking another break from the Master. It's going to be a while before we get the Master back again. So, but after that, we had Time Crash.
It was funny. Yeah, the Fifth Doctor essentially comes in and insults the 10th Doctor.
Yeah,
who turns out to be, as we all know, his son-in-law.
Yeah.
But, basically it's just a little, 10-minute romp.
Yeah, a good send-up to the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah.
After that, we had Voyage of the Damned.
All right, and again, if you're going to do a celebrity-type cruise, why on earth would you make a replica of literally the most infamous ship in Earth's history?
Well,
the people who said it cannot be destroyed, cannot sink, it's the unsinkable Titanic. And literally this turns out to be even a bigger disaster.
well, I mean, that is kind of the thing, though, is that as we see, they don't really know much about Earth history. You have the tour guide there who talks about the terrifying time of Christmas, where you must put out cookies and milk to appease the Santa demon, who will throw coal at you or something like that. It's just like they don't understand anything about Earth culture, so they're just like, I don't know, what's a famous Earth ship? They looked it up on Space Google, and it just Titanic. Sure, go with that one. They heard the name, they didn't know anything else about it. Yeah. So,
and the guest companion, pop star Kylie Minogue, who was actually pretty good in this.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, although I have heard of her, I don't think that I'd ever listened to any of her music. I probably couldn't pick one of her songs out of a lineup, nor could I have picked her out of a lineup.
Well, yeah. So.
Again, and I'm sorry to sound old, but I am. If music was written past 1980, I pretty much don't know it. I was born in the early 50s, so I grew up on 50s, 60s, and 70s music, and everything after that, I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah. If they had an episode with like Ozzy Osbourne, you'd be able to get that down, basically. So,
but Ozzy was performing back in the 70s.
Yeah, so I would love to see. Obviously, we can't do it now, but I would have loved to have seen what is a Doctor Who episode that has Ozzy Osbourne as a companion. So there's a Christmas special for you.
Bubbles, I'm the Prince of Effin' Darkness.
After that, we move on to Partners in Crime, the reintroduction of Donna Noble.
And one of the weirdest, I hesitate to call them villains, but, the antagonists, the adipose, who are literally little creatures made of fat.
I hate them. I still hate them. I will never... They're not cute. They're just not cute. They look slimy. Because they're made of fat and people. It just looks like you touch them and there's just crap on your finger now. You gotta go get some cleaning dish soap to clean that off. It's just...
Well, it turns out that on the Adiposian planet, they had sent somebody to Earth to incubate thousands, if not millions, of these little Adiposian creatures.
Well, that was the thing, is that in the adipose system, they lost one of their planets, and that comes up later at the end of this season. So they send this nanny basically to grow new adipose children, and Donna's on the case with that, and that leads her to running into the Doctor again, and it's something. There's that one shot where there's the taxi and it runs over 12 of them. It's just, it's terrible. Terrible. I mean, it's a great episode. Yeah. And it's a good reintroduction of Donna, but...
And again, I like the idea, because it was very rare in a lot of classic Who, where you have both the science fiction, the serious part of the episode, but then also that element of humor.
Yeah.
Colin Baker, to me, never seemed to have any sense of humor at all. Some more than others. I mean, Hartnell really didn't have much of one. But the stories that Hartnell was in, he was still kind of the object of the humor. Whenever he would do something, and then Ian and Barbara would say, "No, this is what we've got to do." And so, I mean, it was fun without being funny.
Yeah.
This was funny.
Yeah. So I'll just never get over the adipose design. So I don't want a plush. I know they sell little plushes, which at least those would be dry. They wouldn't have pizza grease all over them, but still, no. But after that, we had the Fires of Pompeii.
Again, I love it. You love it. We all love. Some of you don't, but we love the historicals.
Yeah.
So the Doctor and Donna land in the town of Pompeii, 79 AD, and find out that the volcano is not going to erupt. That somebody's going to channel all of the energy from it to do something else.
I mean, if anything, they find out that Mount Vesuvius is not a volcano. and they find the pyrovials, and they're using their ship. They're trying to recreate this because they say that their planet Pyrovilia is gone, and so through all of this, they're gathering this energy. I think they wanted to terraform Earth into being a new Pyrovilia, but the Doctor had to destroy them, and the only way to do that was to detonate their spaceship within Mount Vesuvius, which would have caused a chain reaction, ultimately turning it into a volcano that destroys Pompeii.
Yeah. So this is one of those essentially fixed points in time. The volcano has to erupt, literally wiping out thousands of people. Donna, though, says, come on, I know you can't save everybody, but can't you save somebody? So he goes back and he saves the family of Caecilius,
who was Eston Horto. But yeah, saves his family. So they knock down the 20,000 to 19,996.
But it also is the introduction of what's his name?
Peter Capaldi.
Peter Capaldi. But also, didn't you say that?
One of the Sage girls basically was Karen Gillan, who we will see very, very soon. In fact, in the next episode that we watch. So, which I guess we're not going to record that today. I told us before this will be a short video if the two of us don't yammer on forever. It's been nearly an hour. We're not done yet, and we're still going, and we're still yammering. But luckily, these are the easiest things for me to edit. So,
comparing this to the Romans, the first Doctor episode. Now there was one that there was a lot of humor. A lot of people don't like it because was it Nero? I think it was Nero.
Yeah.
That he was portrayed over the top. But again, the idea was that Ian and Barbara were told to stay at the villa while the Doctor and
Vicky,
I think. We're supposed to go into Rome for something. The Doctor gets mistaken for somebody else who's supposed to be assassinated. Anyway, I read that book just recently. But there was some humor in that there was literally a chase scene, the Emperor chasing Barbara because, he thought she was beautiful and wanted to have his way with her. The Doctor laying down his glasses on the table in the sunlight, not realizing that it was going to catch one of the papers, the papyrus or sheepskin, whatever it was, on fire, which literally will start the Great Fire of Rome. Again, completely different. This one is very, very serious, whereas the Romans was kind of goofy. But again, love both of them.
Yeah, so... Next up was Planet of the Ood.
All right, so the Ood are essentially being enslaved.
Yeah.
Turns out that the little orb that they hold in their hands is literally their second brain.
Kind of. They basically... They normally have a brain that they hold, but what the humans have been doing after they enslave them is literally cutting that out and inserting this translation orb so that they can talk. So,
and the Master Ood, whatever it's called, is predicting that is this where they first predict that the Doctor's coming to an end?
Yes.
Yeah.
That soon your song will end.
Yeah.
So, it's an okay episode. It's probably the weakest episode of season 4, but overall, I mean, it's all right. Next up, we had the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky.
All right. Interesting setup, but not very well executed. First of all, we've said this before. The first episode with the Sontarans in it was the best one so far.
Yeah.
They had and again, partially because it was a historical. And from there, it did not seem to go along with what was the original premise of the Sontarans. And even in this one, when the Sontarans are fighting there at the end, it's not a battle. We talked about the fact that they're like the Klingons. They want to fight a good fight, like the Vikings. They want to die in battle and go to Valhalla. But instead, they're just slaughtering people. And in fact, I don't know if the Doctor, somebody points that out to him, says that this is not glorious battle.
Yeah.
But the basic premise behind this is the young tech bro creates a system that you put in your automobiles, Atmos,
Yeah.
which was supposed to
It was supposed to reduce
emissions.
Yeah, it reduced emissions to 0, but because it was in half the cars on Earth, they used that to essentially just pump the atmosphere of the Earth with these poisonous materials because they wanted to terraform the Earth to be a new breeding ground, basically, for the Sontarans, because the Sontarans lost their original planet that all their warriors are grown on, so they had to do that on Earth. And that was the thing too, was that that was the tactic basically pointed out as the sort of cowardly way, and it was only at the end, after everything had failed, that the Sontarans were like, well, let's just revert back, we're just going to attack them now. And so they ended up fighting UNIT. So
Sontar Ho.
well, yeah, so
Or is it Sontar Ha?
I think it was Ha. So
And the tech bro ends up sacrificing himself, the one decent thing he's ever done in his life.
yeah, so after that was the Doctor's daughter.
Again, I like this, except for the idea was that these were generations of people who were trying to live on the planet with the fish people. With
Yeah.
I remember they were breathing water. But instead, they're actually just clones. And instead of having lived for dozens, if not decades of years, they're literally just a clone that has been done every couple of hours, and they have memories of their previous generation, but they somehow in their minds they think that was 20 years ago when it was more like 20 minutes ago or 20 hours ago. So.
Because they keep making new generations of clones. They're putting it out so fast. None of them have realized that they've only been there for a week, basically. The war has only gone on for a week. And Donna figures that out because there's all these numbers that are around. She keeps taking note of them until she finally realizes that it's the date. Yeah. Every time they finish a section, they mark it down with the date. And so she traces it all back and points out it's only been 1 week since they got there. So...
And the Doctor's daughter's not really his daughter, she's a clone of him.
Yeah.
And although she ultimately dies, the kind of after credit scene shows her being revived, or she revives by herself, and she hops into a spacecraft and shoots off into the galaxy.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, where Tennant meets Georgia Moffat.
Yeah.
And he would later marry her, and she turns out to be the daughter of the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah, so.
Talk about in-house.
Oh, yeah, so. But overall, it's a decent episode.
And again, I thought it would be an interesting idea if she didn't get her own series, because she's a clone of the Doctor, but is she really a Time Lord? We don't know. So,
yeah.
But I thought maybe she would come back at some point, but apparently she never has.
Nope. She might come back in audio dramas, but I don't know. After that was The Unicorn and the Wasp.
Should have been called The Unicorn and the Red Herring.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Agatha Christie is invited to a manor house. Literally set up just like one of her novels. The unicorn is a jewel thief who's come to steal something from the manor, but it turns out the wasp is actually one of the people.
Yeah, the wasp is the priest that's there. And there's sort of a convoluted thing of the wasp was a normal person, to an extent sort of hiding as a normal person, didn't know anything about their alien origin, and the moment that was pretty much accidentally activated, their mother was reading Agatha Christie at the time, and so all of that information of Agatha Christie stories is beamed into the mind of the wasp as it takes on its alien heritage, basically, and thus, this whole thing of killing someone in the study or something, it all starts playing out like an Agatha Christie novel, because that's all like hard coded into the wasp's mind.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember at the end the wasp drowns.
Yeah, because the wasp, because Agatha Christie drives away with this like jewel that the wasp needs, and at the end, Donna just takes it from her, throws it into the river, and the wasp goes in after it and ends up drowning. And as it does, mercifully releases Agatha from its like psychic hold. And then they realize that this is when Agatha Christie goes missing for a few days and winds up in a hotel basically a few days later with no memory of what happened. So,
now, side note, talk about coincidences that always happen in Agatha Christie novels. After we film this today, I'm heading down to the theater. Our theater is producing Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express as adapted by Ken Ludwig. So I'll keep you updated on how that goes.
And once again, I have read Murder on the Orient Express now. It was a graphic novel, but that still counts. And we watched the movie as well with Kenneth Branagh. And yeah, so I am far more educated on Agatha Christie than I was the first time I watched this episode. So, and I don't want to be blamed. I would like to blame the American educational system, which can be blamed for many things in our world, I feel like.
Now, I've read a couple of her novels, and I've been in The Mousetrap 50 years ago. Wow. Yeah, almost exactly 50 years ago. 77, so 48 years ago. I played Colonel Mustard. I keep thinking, whatever his name is. Major Metcalf, that's it.
Next up, a two-parter. For the first time we did a two-parter in the same video. We had Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead.
So there's a group of aliens that live in the shadows.
Yes.
And they start consuming the archaeological team that has come to find out why this planet-wide library has been abandoned. And it turns out there's a little girl whose mind had been put inside the checkout computer, and she saves all of these people. We are introduced to Dr. River Song, who, in addition to being the archaeologist of this team, turns out to, if she's not a Time Lord, she at least knows of them enough to recognize the Doctor, although he does not recognize her. And it's very painful to her to realize that she's meeting him after she had already met a future incarnation of him, but that he has no idea who she is.
Yeah, so it's very clear she has been on many adventures with the Doctor, but all a future version. And so meeting the 10th Doctor here, who doesn't recognize her at all, is this incredibly painful thing. And especially when she realizes at the end that she basically has to die in order to save the day at the end. And so she's like, so this means you always knew I was going to die here on all those adventures we had. And we also know that, in order to make the Doctor trust her, she whispers his actual real birth name into his ear. And that works. That works, so.
Now, I think I know that she shows up in Capaldi's era. Does she also show up in Matt Smith's?
Yes.
Okay. Does she show up in anything after that?
No.
Okay.
And there'll kind of be a reason why she doesn't, but however, the actor Alex Kingston has said she does want to come back to Doctor Who, and it is kind of a shame that River Song doesn't show up with the 13th Doctor or the 15th Doctor or anything like that. So, but yeah, and she has a entire spin-off of audio dramas where she met like every Doctor at this point. So there'll be stories with at the very least, I think from the 3rd Doctor through to the 9th Doctor, and they'll have like a new voice actor to be the 3rd Doctor, but she's also had an adventure with the 4th Doctor, and honestly, that was the only one. Like, I've listened to clips from a bunch of them, but that was the only one that felt the most natural. Like, of the two of them, kind of knowing each other and working together. Like, when she meets the Sixth Doctor or the Seventh Doctor, they don't really sound like they should really be talking to each other. And then there is one clip I saw or listened to where it was the Ninth Doctor. Though I don't fully remember if it was Christopher Eccleston, but it was the Ninth Doctor meeting River Song, and he did not like her whatsoever. But just as I was listening to it, I was like, "This is the most Ninth Doctor clip I've ever heard in my life." So anyway,
so it turns out these little termites basically live off of, are supposed to live off the planet, the woods.
They're born in forests, basically. And that's the thing that they point out at the beginning, that every book on this library planet is first edition. They were all printed for this library. But because of that, there was a mass deforestation to create all these books at the same time. So a planet's worth of forest is in these books, and all of them spawn the Vashtanarada. So it's an interesting thing, just the subtle little things at the beginning that come into play at the end, which that could be said of most good stories anyway, but still.
And I kind of liken them to the boogeyman from Rise of the Guardians, and one of the commenters said, how does your dad know about Rise of the Guardians? And it's like, yeah, he was young, his brother was young.
I was Rise of the Guardians, I think that was 2012, so I was about 15 when that came out, so and trust me, it's easy to get him to watch an animated movie. You get him to watch an animated series, he this checks out, this turns off, so although we're going to try to work on having you watch Vinland Saga, so
but I mean, one of the things about Rise of the Guardians, wasn't Hugh Jackman the Easter Bunny?
Yeah. It had like Hugh Jackman and Alec Baldwin and
wasn't Jude Law the boogeyman?
I think so. Yeah. So it had a star-studded
and Chris
cast.
Pine.
Yeah.
Was Jack Frost. So I mean, it had an all-star voice cast.
Yeah.
But it's just the characterization. I mean, the idea that the Easter Bunny has this Australian accent and he's really kind of muscular and got an attitude.
Yeah.
Okay. It was. I thought it was funny.
Yeah. So. But that's the convoluted Library 2-parter, which, I'm going to be honest, is very indicative of the Moffat era going forward. So we're going to get more of this. After that was Midnight. An interesting episode, a companionless episode of the Doctor being trapped basically on this bus with a lot of these people who are just scared stupid and cannot deal with one of them being possessed, and it all ends with the Doctor almost being tossed out and killed basically.
Yeah.
So but a very good episode that I don't want to watch again. So
I think we compared it to that to a Star Trek episode very similar, where Spock and a bunch of the crew members had crashed the Galileo 7 and basically was turning on each other. It also had elements of the Twilight Zone, the monsters on Maple Street. And I'm looking at this thinking, this must have been done after we came back from vacation, because literally our hair has suddenly jumped to this incredibly long length.
Yeah, you might be right. So
I've gotten a haircut since then. Alex has not.
No, I haven't. I've just let it go this entire time, and I don't know. I like it. I know it doesn't work because I keep letting the hair grow this way, and obviously I've lost so much hair up here. But at the same time, I've just kind of resigned myself to this is how my hair is going to be. It's either this or I shave it all off, so I'm just going to leave it like this for a while, so I don't know.
Tried to teach him about the comb over, but he won't do it.
No. So it's not bad. I think this was actually after we did our vacation, because that was the thing with the Library 2-parter, was at the beginning we were like, and we're back from vacation, but we were recording it before we left. Yeah. So we definitely.
This was a very interesting episode. Very claustrophobic. you never actually see the alien.
Yeah.
So, interesting premise. I don't know how well it was executed, but again, very interesting premise.
Oh, yeah. So, next up was Turn Left.
This was probably one of the best because it was, I said kind of a reverse It's a Wonderful Life, but basically it was, someone mentioned, this is exactly like It's a Wonderful Life because this is what happens to the Earth and all these other stories if you take the Doctor out of them. If the Doctor had died in Planet of the Spiders or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And, of course, Rose somehow manages to get involved trying to get Donna back into the life that she was supposed to be living with the Doctor. And again, it all goes to when she met the Doctor, because when she was going to go to a job but decided against it or whatever, and ended up turning right, which got her into contact with the Doctor, and so here she was supposed to turn left so that the Doctor would not survive.
Well, it was
versa.
the opposite of that, but essentially, that they sort of, that Donna gets pulled back to that and ends up going right. Everything goes to hell, basically, until eventually she can get back there. And by Donna going back in time to that point, she makes it so that her past self has to turn left, and everything happens as it should, basically. So, but yeah, a very good, if bleak, episode of Doctor Who. So, after that, we had The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, which I'm just realizing there is. Why did I leave? That is actually a mistake in the thumbnail. You see this little bit behind you? That must be leftover from the image that Harriet Jones was in, and I just did not cut that out. How did I don't know how I missed that. I'm normally so good about that, but it's fine, but that's strange that I missed that.
All right, so the Daleks steal planet Earth and 26 other planets.
Yes.
The idea behind it is they're going to, and of course, Davros is back again, having survived the Time War somehow.
Yeah.
And the idea is they're going to literally recreate the entire universe?
They're going to use the 27 planets as an engine that will destroy all matter, basically, within the universe, so that the Daleks will remain as the one supreme race left.
Yeah.
So...
But retired, disgraced PM... Harriet Jones manages to use the network to contact Sarah Jane and
Torchwood and Martha. It's a very big crossover episode of bringing back pretty much everything from this era. So,
and then they are going to try to figure out a way to stop Davros.
Yeah, and
Harriet sacrifices herself in order to get the message out.
Yeah. So, actually, now that I think about it, I know what this is. This is her ID when she holds it up and says, Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister. That's what that is. That's not a thumbnail mistake. I nailed it. So, anyway, not important. But yeah, and then at the end, they start to have a reunion between the Doctor and Rose until the Doctor is shot by a Dalek. They take him into the TARDIS and he begins to regenerate, which brings us into Journey's End, where he does regenerate, but he siphons the energy off into his severed hand so that he doesn't change himself.
And creates the Meta-Crisis Doctor?
Yes.
Who is only...
He's human because he is part Doctor, part Donna.
And we also create the Dr. Donna.
Yes. Donna gets all of this, all the knowledge of a Time Lord within her mind, and unfortunately at the end it starts to burn away at her mind, so the Doctor has to take away all of her memories of him and the TARDIS and all these aliens and stuff, and pretty much just revert her back to who she was before the Runaway Bride. So,
and taking Rose back to her alternate universe, the Meta-Crisis Doctor stays with her so they can grow old together. He loves her. He actually says that, whereas the actual Doctor, although he said it, she didn't hear it because he was fading out of her universe.
Yeah.
So she appears to be happy taking the alternate version of him.
Yeah, it's essentially giving the Doctor a happy ending without giving the Doctor a happy ending, because he does technically get it, but it's the Metacrisis Doctor, who can settle down, start a family with Rose, while the normal Doctor is left all by himself. No Rose, no Donna, no nothing. It's just him now.
Yeah.
So, but that leads us into the next Doctor, the first of our specials.
All right, so he lands in Victorian England, where what appears to be a Cyberman is threatening the town, and just as David Tennant appears, so does this other guy. Is it David Morrissey?
Yeah,
something like that. And he says he's the Doctor, and ultimately we find out that he has opened a canister called the Info Stamp.
Yeah,
and it had the Cybermen's recollections of the Doctor, and he thinks he's the Doctor. It's, again, very funny. It worked to me right up until the very end when they create the gigantic Cyberman.
Yeah, the Cyber King.
Cyber King, which again, why not Cyber Queen? That would have made more sense, especially in the era of, Queen Victoria. Anyway, so right up until that point, I thought it was very good, and then it kind of the ending kind of falls apart. But the actual next Doctor remembers who he really is, and that his son is safe, and so he decides that he and Rosita will resume their normal lives.
Yeah. So
again, kind of fun.
Yeah. A good play on the fact that they had not announced. They had announced that David Tennant was leaving, but they had not announced who the next Doctor would be, so they play with it a little bit, while also still being a good episode, even without that. Yeah. So,
and an interesting villainess.
Yeah.
But again, I thought they didn't set up her backstory quite well enough, and then again, the whole idea of the Cyber King, this giant cyber robot, tramping on London, again. To me, it didn't work the way it should have.
Yeah, so after that was Planet of the Dead.
Very interesting new companion, Christina D'Souza. She's another thief. Had stole the Grail, the cup of King Athelstan or
something,
Ethelbert. Anyway, but she manages to get onto a bus after exiting a museum. The Doctor's there, and there's a bunch of other people. They go through a wormhole, land on this planet, which appears to be a planet of desert sand, but it turns out the sand is actually the remains of all the people on the planet who had been consumed by these little locust bee-like plague creatures.
Yeah.
And there's another spaceship that has crashed there. They essentially help the Doctor get the bus functioning again. They go back through the wormhole, and he unfortunately leaves Christina behind.
Yeah. Because at this point, after losing Donna, he thinks it's better if he just travels by himself. And that is pretty much immediately decided that that's a bad idea in the waters of Mars.
All right, so this is the Time Lord victorious, Time Lord triumphant, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Visits the buoy station on Mars, the first human colony on Mars. Realizes that the date is the date that the whole place is supposed to blow up. He tries to prevent that. He realizes that they've been infected with some kind of virus from the waters of Mars. And as it keeps taking over more and more of the crew, he takes the expedition leader and two of the other crew members back to Earth in their TARDIS. But he explains to the crew leader, and I never can remember her name,
Adelaide,
that her bravery and heroism basically inspires her granddaughter to go out and take the human race beyond our solar system and everything. And she says, but my death is what inspired her. He goes, now you can inspire her in person. She goes, no. She realizes it's a fixed point in time, so ends up literally sacrificing herself so that the timeline would remain the same.
Yeah. So it's essentially a reversal of what happens in Pompeii, where there he makes it happen and he has to just let it happen because it's a fixed point. Here he tries, after all the loss that he's experienced and realizing he's the last of the Time Lords, he tries to change the fixed point in time, and it doesn't work, and it backfires, and he realizes he's gone too far, he's lived too long, and he's lost it, basically. So,
and again, to me, the one problem with the script is that the other two people that he brings back, because it never goes into how they explain how they got back to Earth.
Well, yeah. Yeah, because I guess it could have been just a strange mystery. They realized, well, the Bowie base was destroyed on this date, but on the same day, Adelaide was on Earth, and she died, at her home, and it's just like, well, how did that happen? But nobody would ever know. But yeah, it's like, how do those two explain that, how they got home? We don't know. So, but that leads us into, finally, the final episode, The End of Time, parts 1 and 2.
All right. Not only the return of the Master, but the return of what appears to be Rassilon.
Yes.
Time Lords have escaped their little pocket universe and are ready to use whatever means they can to literally start controlling time, and the Doctor decides he's got to stop them.
Well, specifically, for them, it's the last day of the Time War, and they are about to be, as far as they know, they're about to be destroyed by the Doctor at the end of the Time War, so they use the Master to escape their own destruction and bring Gallifrey to Earth during the time of the 10th Doctor. And so it becomes this conflict of trying to stop them, stopping the Master from bringing them back, stopping the Master from changing every single human being on Earth into a version of himself, with the exception of Wilf and Donna. And yeah, it's complicated, but it's a strange thing to think about too, of like, okay, that also means that Gwen and Reese turned into the Master, and Sarah Jane turned into the Master. Every single person on Earth. I mean, they even say even the people dead in their graves turned into dead versions of him, basically.
Yeah. And the most inexplicable part of this is somehow the Master has gained some kind of electrical powers.
Yeah, after a botched resurrection, basically, his body is deteriorating, and so I guess the idea is that he has this cascading amount of energy that he can that he uses to his advantage, but it shouldn't. It still means he's deteriorating, basically. So,
and then in the end, there's a face-off between Rassilon and the Master. They end up literally destroying each other.
Yeah.
And the Doctor goes back to his TARDIS, regenerates, and literally blows the place up.
Yeah. So, after going and seeing everyone, basically every companion he's ever had, and going back and finally letting go and finally regenerating after all this time. So,
still not a ginger.
No. You know the funny thing? Apparently there was a controversy about that, because some people thought he was saying, oh, I'm still not a ginger, as if that was a good thing. And so people were like, oh, what's this anti-ginger agenda from the BBC? And the BBC had to actually make a statement clarifying, no, he's disappointed that he's still not a ginger, which is what he said during the Christmas invasion too. So and they also had to point out, it's like, well, he's not anti-ginger. His last companion was a redhead. In fact, his next companion is a redhead too. Yeah. And he's had redheads before. Mel, Turlough. These, like, they're not, I don't know. That's when stupidity began on the internet. I mean, it's not, but still. But yeah, but an interesting ending to the Tennant era. So now that we've been talking for an hour and a half, when I said we would totally be brief about this, as a whole, the Tennant era.
I think I have said before that, obviously, and for those of you who've watched us over the years, Hartnell is still my favorite because he was the original, and I saw the original in 1963 through 66. I put Tom Baker in there with Hartnell. I would put, now I know a lot of people wouldn't agree with this, but I would put Seventh Doctor.
Sylvester McCoy.
I love McCoy. And I actually really liked Eccleston. I would put the 5 of them as my top 5. Simply because they weren't flat. Some of the doctors, I mean, they've all been good. Again, I think the only one that there was a problem with, and it was not really his fault, was Colin Baker.
Yeah.
Because the writers did not do him justice. The directors didn't either. I think he could have been probably a very good doctor, even with the idea that quirks that he was going to be a little crankier than some of the others. But again, the stories didn't help him out with that. So I really liked all of them, but I would have to say that Tennant and Eccleston together would be with McCoy and Tom Baker and Hartnell for me, personally.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting going on to Matt Smith, because his portrayal of the Doctor is very, very, very different from the way that Tennant portrays him. And, you know, a lot of people will criticize Tennant, saying he's the most human Doctor, and the Doctor should feel more alien. And I mean, from here on out, pretty much, I would say every Doctor is really, really good. I really don't think there are problems with any of the future Doctors in terms of their portrayals. Now, sometimes the writing won't be as good, but for the most part, like, each of their performances, I'm like, no, that's good. There's something good there. Whereas, you're right, with Colin Baker, and again, I don't think that's his fault, where it's just like, the performance wasn't there, but that's because he was given nothing, and he was just trying to make something happen. So, and from what I hear, he's much better in the audio dramas of the Sixth Doctor. So, but Tennant is definitely up there. I mean, you'll definitely find, you know, I made a joke at the beginning of that video where I was like, oh, this is the end of Doctor Who, because this is where a number of people jump ship because they couldn't accept a new Doctor after Tennant, and you will find that unwittingly there will be, Doctor Who will now be haunted by the ghost of David Tennant for the rest of this series, because he just left that big of an impact. I mean, at the very least, I think he is probably the most iconic of any of the Doctors. So it was right at that age where the internet was, you know, getting going, and, you know, so everyone was talking online, and I would definitely say his popularity surpassed that of what previously would have been the Fourth Doctor.
Yeah.
So he's, for many, many people, he is the Doctor, and there's nobody else. So, and he's definitely up there for me. I would probably agree with you. I don't know if I would put him in the top 5 for myself. I think at the very least I do prefer Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant, and we'll see later that I also do prefer the 12th Doctor to the 10th Doctor specifically. So, but still a very good era. I mean, pretty much, if there is an episode with David Tennant in it, it's probably good to some degree. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's basically it. We're done yapping, and we yapped for over an hour and a half.
And there's not a whole lot you can cut out of this.
Nope, I can't cut any of this. So this will end up being longer than the last video that we did because this will be completely unedited. So yeah, so I'm glad we didn't go 4.5 hours last week by also including this, but yeah. This is also probably going out on a Saturday, actually. I'm going to put it out on a Saturday instead. So in just 2 days, tune in and we will start Season 5, Episode 1, The 11th Hour. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist with every Doctor Who video that's on the channel. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.